Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.
Namibia, land of the brave. Brave men and women who dedicate their lives to protecting a country of harsh terrain, ancient cultures, and vulnerable wildlife. Namibian conservationists Dr. Rudy and Marley are on a mission to travel the length and breadth of Namibia to meet these intrepid individuals and to witness the incredible work they undertake on a daily basis. These are the unsung heroes of Namibian conservation, and these are their wild jobs.
There's all sorts of human and wildlife conflict in Namibia. Once in a while, we'll deal with a snake and human conflict. And that arises because of ignorance and fear.
Francois Thiart is a young man from Windhoek, and his passion for snakes has made him the guy that people call when they find a snake in the house. We're going to ask Francois what we can do when we encounter a snake and how can we help in the conservation of snakes.
Francois, at what age did you realize that you actually love snakes and this is what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Well, my passion started at the young age of 13. Where it all began is on the fateful day I lost one of my heroes, known to many people as the crocodile hunter.
That's now Steve Irwin,
Exactly.
if I have it correct.
At that stage I realized in Namibia not a lot of people actually care about our reptiles. And I just decided, why can't I be that change? Why can't I spread the message?
What change do you want to bring about?
Well, the change I want to bring about is just to show people that these animals are not evil. They're not the devil, and really they're not out to get us when we're walking in the bush. These snakes play a very, very important role in our ecosystem. Of course, they keep the rodent populations under control, and this again can assist farmers who's farming with crops. This will limit the losses of their crops as well, since rats are quite destructive.
Francois, this snake, it looks like a brown house snake. Is that correct?
This is correct, yeah. This is the brown house snake. Now, this snake is found throughout Namibia. Interesting thing about this snake is the fact that in the Oshivambu culture, if you find this snake in your house, it means someone is pregnant. And the name they have for this snake is Ilela.
You didn't catch that snake around our house, so don't worry.
No, luckily not.
Francois, as a mum, I would, have a few heart attacks and give a few hidings out if my two boys will play and, handle snakes on a daily basis. But this is quite risky. I mean, you put your life on the risk every time you go out and get a snake out of somebody's house. What message would you put out there for younger people that want to do this for a living?
In this job, you need your eyes, and you need to identify them correctly, just to make sure it's not something venomous before you pick it up. Every single call out we approach with caution. If you're not trained in doing this, if you have no idea how to work this with snakes, I would rather say leave it alone and call an expert.
One of the most notorious snakes in Namibia is the black mamba. With its menacing grin and venomous bite, the black mamba has developed quite the reputation.
According to a lot of people, you're going to die within 10 minutes or within 30 minutes. This is not true. If you're a healthy adult and this snake bites you, you have at least 7 hours to get to the nearest hospital.
7 hours?
So you can have a cup of coffee and eat a hamburger on your way to hospital.
Francois, he looks like he's got a little smile on his face if you watch him from the front. Can you tell us more about the mouth
That's one of the distinctive features on the mamba, is that little evil grin, or as I like to call it, the grin of death. Now, mambas are relatively easy to identify. If you look at the mamba, you will see that, as you said, the little grin, the coffin-shaped head.
Oh, how convenient.
And the body, of course. Now, black mambas don't get the name from the color of their body, but rather from the black inner lining of its mouth. So over here we have the Anchitas cobra. Now, this snake is found throughout Namibia north of Rubot, but avoids the arid western parts.
What toxin does it have,
This
Francois?
snake has a very, very strong neurotoxic venom. Again, this affects your breathing, and if you don't get to help fast enough, you will unfortunately pass away.
Fortunately, pass away.
Yeah.
But this is not a fully grown one.
No, this is not.
How big can they get?
Anchitas cobras are Namibia's largest cobra species, so they grow to about 2.3 meters fully grown. So you can imagine for yourself what massive snake that is.
Francois, so tell me, if I walk in the veld and I come around the bush and there's the snake and I'm very close to it, what's the right thing to do?
The best thing to do in that case, I would say, is just to remain dead still. Snakes don't have very good eyesight, so if you stand still, they'll just see you as another object in the bush, and they'll just move on their way.
Yeah.
So other advice I can give you guys, for example, is when you're walking out in the bush and you know there's snakes, the best would be to wear loose-fitting baggy jeans and closed shoes. As some protection is better than none.
In example.
In example,
In
exactly.
In example.
No, safety sandals, not going to work.
Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager. Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.
Francois has got a zebra snake. Now, a zebra snake is a spitting snake, and so his advice to us is we need to put on our sunglasses. So that's exactly what we've done. Francois, tell us about this snake.
The zebra snake, this is one of the most common snakes we find in Namibia. And what makes this snake even more special is that it is near endemic. This snake is found only in Namibia and parts of southern Angola.
And what type of poison does it have?
This snake's venom is predominantly cytotoxic. Earlier it was believed that zebra snakes had a mixture of both neuro and cytotoxic venom. Although they do have neurotoxic compounds in their venom, they are more cytotoxic than anything else. Cytotoxic obviously meaning cell and tissue destroying.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, and with some of my colleagues that I've spoken with, the treatment for this snake bite is to debride the tissue until you find healthy tissue.
Exactly, that is correct. That is the most effective treatment for the zebra snake at the moment, since there is no anti-venom.
I think there's an interesting story about this treatment because Dr. Christo Buys, one of Namibia's leading snake experts and working in the field of snake bites, wrote up his treatment regime for zebra snakes. And in Central Africa there was another doctor that also did the same thing, and a couple of years ago they met up and compared their notes, and that's how they sort of came to this conclusion that debridement is actually the only treatment.
That is correct.
Can you imagine if it bites you in the face, eh?
Yeah, on the
And
nose.
you have to cut away.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why do these snakes, I've heard that they come into a house and many people get bitten in their houses.
In their houses. Yeah, you see, I think what happens is since around human habitation there's quite a lot of rodents, and often than not this snake ends up in your house chasing after a rat, and when you go to bed at night, quite possibly the snake decided to crawl up and he bites you. This snake, along with the Mozambique spitting cobra, seem to like houses quite a bit, especially during the warm parts of the day when they will enter the houses in look of shade and a cool place.
So, Francois, people often confuse this snake with the rinkels. Do we find rinkels in Namibia?
Rinkels, we don't find rinkels in Namibia. That snake is only found in South Africa and parts of Zimbabwe. Another difference with the rinkels is where the cobras, the true cobras, have smooth scales. Rinkels has distinctive keeled or rough scales. Also, the head shape is completely different. It's more compact, whereas the zebra snake's head is more elongated.
Does the rinkels also have that first bit that's black?
The rinkels
starts from the head downwards.
Rinkels, only a part of the head is black, where most of the part of the zebra snake is completely black, leading towards the part of the body where the banding starts. It is a very distinctive snake.
It's one of the most beautiful snakes to me.
For sure.
Francois, I'm now handling the deadly mole snake. Tell us about this mole snake.
Now, the mole snake is only deadly if it's mistaken for something else, fortunately for us. The mole snakes kill their prey by means of constriction. So what happens is when they find the rat or mouse, they grab it by the head, throw their coils around it, and start squeezing. Every time the rat exhales, the coils get tighter, so it basically just squeezes the life out of the prey animal.
Okay, so they're not poisonous.
They're not venomous at all.
That is a relief.
How many rats do they catch, plus minus?
Well, in a mole snake's lifetime, which spans about 10 to 15 years, or maybe even 20 years, they can prevent up to 1 million rodents from being born.
Shoo.
So this is nature's very best pest control.
That's wonderful. So these are actually, we should have a mole snake in every house in Namibia.
Exactly, I would agree with that one.
That's not me, it's the snake.
He's enjoying himself.
Lekker mans. Poep I think.
So this black mole snake with the white stripes, what is this called then?
A zebra snake.
A nervous mole snake.
Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager. Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.
Inside Nankose's wildlife clinic, Dr. Rudy van Vuren is collecting 2 blood samples from Marlies. He wants to show snake expert Francois the effect of puff adder venom on human blood.
Well done.
For this, he needs 2 samples, one with venom and one without, to compare the effects. But first, Francois must collect the puff adder's venom, a risky task not to be attempted by anyone other than a professional snake handler.
One more, Francois.
Rudy and team wait for the venom to take effect on one of the blood samples.
So one can clearly see in the control, you can see that the blood clotted. And this is the venom, and you can clearly see there's no clotting. And this is what, although a puff adder has cytotoxic venom, it does have a component of hemotoxicity and cardiotoxicity. In other words, it affects the way that your blood clots, and it can affect your heart. So when it affects your clotting system, normal blood viscosity is intact, you can either be hypercoagulable, so you make clots, or you can start bleeding just because you can't clot, like an Ebola fever. And this is exactly what's happening here. Normal blood viscosity goes abnormal and you start bleeding from everywhere. And that often is also cause of death in humans.
Having seen the effect of puff adder venom on human blood, the danger that these snakes can pose, if not treated with care, is very clear. Rudy and Marley are joining Francois on one of his call-outs to see the incredible work he undertakes on a daily basis.
Francois, a lot of the calls that you get are from people that find a snake in their house. Like for instance, in this case. What's actually the best thing to do when you find a snake in your house?
Well, in my opinion, the best thing to do when you find a snake is just to remain calm. Don't stress, and also do not try to kill it. Obviously, when you're cornering the snake, it's feeling threatened. Thus, accidents happen. So it's always best rather to phone either the police or the fire brigade or your local snake catcher to come in and to deal with the situation in a much safer way.
I mean, you get a lot of phone calls and a lot of call-outs. You must have dealt with a lot of strange requests, eh?
Well, over the last 9 years, I've dealt with quite a few funny call-outs, but the one that tops my list is obviously the toilet snake, as I like to call him. So we went out on one call-out in the city, and we looked for the snake. I scratched around a bit in the bathroom, couldn't find it. Checked underneath the toilet, scratched around there. And I went outside just to check in the drains to see whether or not the snake might have slithered down it. And the police officer who was on call with me, who attended to the call-out with me, he decided to use the toilet. And once he was finished doing his business, he flushed it and out came the snake. Oh boy, he nearly got a heart attack. Obviously, I also got a fright and I just ran towards him, eventually caught the harmless brown house snake, and everything ended well from there on in.
Francois, we're going to go and look for this snake now, but I think, you know, Marlies and I will follow you. You can go in front, but what's the right way to approach this? How should we look for this snake?
Well, in my opinion, caution is always the best option. So what I usually do is I carry all of my equipment with me at all times. My glasses for in case it's a spitting cobra, my trusty hook, which is like a longer arm, and an extra arm which I can handle the snake with safely, and then obviously a bucket I use just to put it in and to transport it in. Yeah, that's just my basic protocol, and just enter the house with caution.
Okay, so you go in the front.
Yeah, I'll take the lead, don't worry about it.
I'll check the back first. Okay.
No, that's good.
It's clean. Just need to work in these dirty, dusty environments.
Exactly.
I think it's more
I
dangerous.
hope you don't have fever, right?
Yeah.
Nah, luckily not. I'm immune. Okay, so behind this there's nothing. It's nice and clear there. So next off we're going to move into the bathroom where it's quite cool.
Do they like the cool spots?
Yeah, they like the cool spots, especially on a hot day like we had today. So there's nothing there. Nothing behind these bottles. That's clean.
The toilet is probably one of the most
And that's the least.
popular places to hide for snakes.
Yeah, snakes like it in the toilets for some reason. I think it's because it's nice and cool, and also there's
So that's
water.
why I tell you constantly, close the lid.
Ah.
Close
Okay.
the lid.
Okay, it's clear underneath, there's nothing. I've had many cases where snakes actually curled up around this area underneath there. I think that is clean.
Did you get? Have you got phone calls of spiders.
Yes, I have.
Wow. Ik zie die slang. Ik zie die slang.
Waar is die slang?
En
What is it? This is quite a cool find. This is the
Can we come closer?
Yeah, you guys can come closer.
Are you
It's
sure?
not venomous at all. This is a southern African python. This is Africa's largest python species. They grow up to a length of about 5 meters.
Sure. So this one is still baby.
This one is still very, very young.
And what are we going to do with the snake now?
So what we're going to do next is we're just going to release him back into the bush, far away from people, where he can eat all of the rats and mice till his heart's content.
Sure. So Francois, if it was a poisonous snake, would you do exactly the same?
No, firstly, if it was a venomous snake, I would not have used my hands. Rather hooks than hands, we always say. So use my hook, pick up the snake with it. So then pretty much it's much safer for myself and for the people surrounding us
Okay.
as well.
And if it was poisonous or venomous, you would still release it the same way as you do a python?
If it is in the bucket, what we usually do is we open up the clips, then we use the hook just to take off the lid and to take out the snake, just put them back in the bush where it will slither away.
Okay.
So it's always important to be cautious because you never know when an accident is going to happen. Slither away.
Okay, so let's slither
Let's
away.
slither away. Excellent.
Having found a secluded area, Francois can now release the snake back into the bush, away from any houses or potential human interaction.
The sensation that's often created on TV by the handling of snakes can be a good thing and a bad thing. In Francois Thiart's case, it was a good thing. It inspired him. But on the other side, it can be bad. It can create a sort of thing where everybody wants to become a snake handler and everybody wants to have a snake as a pet.
And like any wild animal in the wild, we should leave them in the wild and we should respect them. Snakes play a very vital role in our ecosystem.
Coming up in next week's episode of Wild Jobs Namibia. Rudy and Marley look at the threats that cheetahs face in Namibia and what can be done to protect these incredible animals.
Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.